The first time I found the lace, it was because I was looking for a missing sock. That sounds like a joke. The kind of throwaway line you say to make the story go down easier. But it's the truth. It was a Tuesday morning in late October. Gray light pressing against the kitchen window, the coffee maker hissing like it was tired of trying. I had one heel bare and cold on the hardwood, the other foot wedged into a black ankle sock that didn't match anything I owned. Our laundry baskets were overflowing in the way they do when you keep pretending you'll catch up on the weekend. Bill had already left for work. He always left early, before the rest of the neighborhood woke up, like he was trying to outrun something. For months, maybe longer, our mornings had felt like that. Two people moving around each other with careful elbows, not touching unless necessary. We said, "Love you," like a habit. We kissed like punctuation. I carried the basket down the hall to our bedroom, stepping around the dog's toy bone, passing the mirror where I'd stopped looking too closely at myself. Marriage had made me efficient. I could run a household, manage our bills, remember his mother's birthday, keep the fridge stocked. What it had not made me lately was desired, or brave, or soft. I pulled open Bill's dresser drawer because I'd checked mine 3 times already, and there it was, folded neatly, tucked behind his gray undershirts like it belonged there, a pair of panties, not the utilitarian, high-waisted kind that disappear under jeans. These were a pale blush pink with a scalloped edge and a tiny satin bow, the kind that seems to hold a secret just by existing. There were others beneath it, black lace, a silky red thong, a camisole with thin straps like spider webs. Everything smelled faintly of fabric softener and something else, clean skin maybe, or the ghost of a perfume I didn't wear. My first reaction wasn't anger. It was a hot, sharp rush of humiliation, like the floor had moved and I'd been caught mid-step. 100 thoughts fought for the front of my brain, all of them ugly in their panic. Is he cheating? Is this mine? Did I forget? Is he... The last one was the most dangerous because it didn't have an easy ending. I sat down on the edge of the bed with the drawer still open. My heart thudded in my throat. In the living room, the refrigerator clicked. Somewhere outside, a lawn service started up, the whine of machinery cutting through my silence like someone else's problem. I stared at the lace like it might explain itself. When you've been married for 16 years, you think you know the geography of your life. You could navigate it in the dark. But that drawer was a hidden door in a house I thought I'd built with my own hands. I closed it softly, like I could put the moment back. Then I opened it again because there was no back anymore. I didn't take anything out. I didn't smell it, hold it up, compare it to the shape of my own body. I just looked. And then I did something that surprised me. I started to cry. Not because Bill had betrayed me, not yet, but because the sight of those delicate things folded so carefully made me realize he'd been carrying something alone. And I knew, in my bones, that loneliness was the real distance between us. All day, I carried the discovery like a stone in my pocket. At work, I smiled at my coworkers. I answered emails. I pretended to listen in a meeting while my mind ran the same loops over and over. What do I say? What if he lies? What if I say the wrong thing and he never forgives me? That last one, that fear of losing him by speaking, was what told me this wasn't about lace. It was about trust, about whatever had been quietly cracking between us for years. Bill came home just after 6. I heard his key in the lock, the familiar shuffle of shoes by the door, the little sigh he always made when he stepped inside, as if the outside world cost him more than it should. "Hey," he called. "Smells good." "Hey," I said back, stirring a pot I'd barely tasted. My hands shook. I gripped the spoon harder, like it could steady me. We ate at the table like we always did. Small talk, the weather, a coworker of his who'd retired, my sister's new puppy. The ordinary things we used as wallpaper so we didn't have to look at the bare wall underneath. After dinner, he rinsed his plate and set it in the dishwasher. I watched him from the sink, watching the way he moved. Still familiar, still my husband, still the man who used to pull me into him in the hallway just because he wanted to. Now he moved like someone trying not to take up too much space. "Bill," I said, and my voice came out quieter than I intended, like I was calling his name in a church. He paused with his back to me. Yeah? There are moments where you can feel your life split into two paths. If you say it, you step into one future. If you don't, you step into another. The easy future wasn't always the kind one. I was putting laundry away, I said slowly, choosing each word like it might break. And I opened your dresser drawer. He turned around. His face went blank in a way I'd never seen, like all the blood had gone inward. His eyes flicked, just for a second, down the hall toward our bedroom. I wasn't snooping, I added quickly. I was looking for a sock. He swallowed. His Adam's apple bobbed like a struggle. For a moment, I thought he might laugh, might brush it off, might say it was a prank gift or something stupid. But he didn't. His shoulders dropped, and the look that came over him wasn't guilt. It was fear. Sharon, he said, and my name sounded like an apology. I stepped closer, keeping my hands visible, as if we were both animals in a room that suddenly smelled like danger. Can we talk? I asked. Please. He didn't answer right away. His jaw worked, his eyes shone, just slightly, as if he'd been holding water back for a long time. Then he nodded once. A small, defeated motion. We went into the bedroom. The lamp on my nightstand cast warm light across the quilt my mother had made us for our 10th anniversary, the one with all the squares sewn together like someone believing in permanence. Bill sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on knees, hands clasped so tight his knuckles were pale. I stood near the dresser, not touching it, not invading. My heart kept trying to run. I found lingerie, I said, because there was no softer word. In your drawer. Bill flinched like the word itself hurt. I waited. The silence thickened. The dog scratched at the door and then wandered away. In the far distance, a car alarm chirped. Finally, Bill whispered, I'm not cheating. The relief that hit me was real, immediate, but it didn't solve anything. It just cleared the smoke so I could see the fire. Okay, I said. I sat down beside him, not too close, giving him room. Thank you for telling me that. He laughed once, humorless. You didn't even ask. I wanted to, I admitted. But this doesn't feel like that. Bill's eyes squeezed shut. When he opened them, they were wet. I don't know what's wrong with me, he said. That sentence broke my heart more than the lingerie did. Hey, I said, and I reached out slowly until my hand rested on his forearm. His skin was warm. He didn't pull away. Don't say that. He stared at his hands. I've liked wearing it sometimes, since I was a kid. He said it like he was confessing a crime. I didn't plan it. It's not, God, I don't even know how to explain it. I felt my own body tense. Not because I was disgusted, at least not consciously, because my brain was scrambling for categories, for labels, for a way to file this into something manageable. Was Bill gay? Was he trans? Was this a phase? Was this the end of us? I forced myself to breathe. When you say you like wearing it, I asked gently, what does it feel like? Bill's eyes flicked up to mine, startled by the question, like he'd expected interrogation, not curiosity. It feels, he swallowed, quiet, like my skin makes sense, like I can breathe, like there's this part of me that isn't always clenched. He rubbed his thumb over his knuckle, an old anxious habit. I don't want to be a woman, if that's what you're thinking. I don't know. I just know I feel calmer, sometimes pretty, and then I hate myself for it. My chest tightened. Do you hate yourself? I asked. Or are you afraid I will? Bill looked away. That was answer enough. It would be easy to pretend I didn't have fear. I did. I was raised in a world where men were supposed to be hard edges and women were supposed to be softness, and anything that blurred those lines was either a joke or a threat. I had learned those lessons early, even if I didn't agree with them out loud. But sitting beside my husband, this man who had held my hand through my father's funeral, who had made pancakes shaped like hearts for our anniversaries, who still brought in the groceries without being asked, I couldn't make him a threat. He was a person. He was mine. He was also, suddenly, someone I hadn't fully met. What do you need from me? I asked, voice trembling. Bill let out a shaky breath. I don't know, he said. I didn't think I'd ever tell you. I thought I could keep it separate, but I can't, not anymore. I've been so angry, so shut down, and it's because I'm tired of hiding. There it was, the missing piece. The reason our intimacy had become brittle, why his touch sometimes felt like obligation. Hiding takes energy. It steals tenderness. It turns you into a person who's always bracing for impact. I'm scared, I admitted. I'm scared of saying something wrong. I'm scared of losing you. I'm scared of what this means. Bill nodded, tears slipping down his cheeks now. Me too. Something in me softened at the honesty. It didn't solve everything, but it created a bridge. Okay, I said. I wiped my own face with the back of my hand. We don't have to figure out every label tonight, but I need you to know I'm here. I'm not going to shame you. Bill made a sound that was half sob, half laugh. He covered his face with his hands like he couldn't handle the relief. That night, we didn't have sex. We didn't do anything dramatic. We just lay in bed, facing each other, our knees touching under the quilt, and we talked like we used to when we were dating, when we stayed up until 2 a.m. telling the truth because it felt like a dare. He told me about being 12 and stealing a slip from his cousin's laundry basket, not for a joke, but because the softness felt like a secret door. He told me about the first time he bought panties as an adult, in a drugstore, heart-hammering, expecting someone to point and laugh. He told me about how he'd stuffed them in a shoebox in the garage and only moved them into his drawer when he started trusting that I wouldn't go looking. And you weren't wrong, I said quietly. I didn't go looking. He turned his face into my shoulder then, and for the first time in months, I felt him fully exhale against me. The next day, I drove to Target on my lunch break and stood in the lingerie section like a spy in enemy territory. Bright lights, cheerful music, rows of bras and panties hanging like harmless flags. I realized I hadn't bought myself anything pretty in years. My drawer was full of beige practicality. My hands shook as I ran my fingers over fabrics. I kept glancing around, convinced I'd see someone I knew. The irony wasn't lost on me. Bill had been feeling that fear forever, and I was tasting it in a single afternoon. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't sure if buying something would be helpful or overwhelming, but I remembered the way he'd said the word pretty like it was forbidden, and something fierce rose in me. Not erotic, not yet, but protective. I chose something simple, a black satin camisole with adjustable straps and a matching pair of briefs with a soft lace trim. Nothing extreme, nothing that screamed, just something that might feel like a permission slip. I brought it home in a plain bag, heart pounding as if I'd purchased contraband. That evening after dinner, I found Bill in the garage tinkering with nothing, really, standing at his workbench, moving tools around like he was pretending to be busy. Hey, I said. He looked up, wary, like a dog expecting scolding. I bought you something, I said, and my voice shook, but I held his gaze. If you want it, if you don't, we can return it. No pressure. His eyes widened. Sharon, you didn't have to. I wanted to, I interrupted gently, because I'm trying to understand, and because I love you, and I don't want you to be alone in this. I held out the bag. Bill took it like it might burn him. His hands trembled. He didn't open it right away. He just stared at the bag, breathing hard. Can I try it on? He asked, voice small. Of course, I said. And if you want privacy, I'll stay out. If you want me there, I can be there. You get to decide. That was the first boundary we built together, and it mattered more than anything I bought. Bill disappeared into our bedroom and shut the door. I sat on the couch with the dog's head in my lap, petting its ears over and over, listening to the muffled rustle of fabric, the creak of the closet door. My body felt full of adrenaline, like I was waiting for a verdict. After a few minutes, the bedroom door opened a crack. Sharon? Bill called. Yeah? Can you come here? I stood slowly, like I didn't want to spook him. When I walked into the bedroom, he was standing near the mirror, shoulders hunched, hands gripping the hem of the camisole like he wanted to hide and show himself at the same time. The satin caught the lamplight, making his skin look warmer. The strap sat against his shoulders in a way that was unexpectedly tender, like the garment had been designed for softness and was honoring it on him. His face was flushed, eyes bright, mouth pressed tight with uncertainty. "I look ridiculous," he whispered. I swallowed. Not because he looked ridiculous, because he looked vulnerable. And vulnerability, when you've been starving for connection, is incredibly intimate. "You don't," I said honestly. I stepped closer, stopping where he could still back away if he wanted. "You look like you." Bill blinked, and a tear slipped down his cheek. "That's what scares me," he admitted. I reached out and touched the strap lightly, just a brush. "Does it feel good?" I asked. He nodded, throat working. "Yeah," he whispered. "It feels like me, but also like something I've never been allowed to be." My own eyes burned. "Then you're allowed," I said, voice firm. "Here, with me. You're allowed." He stared at me like he was trying to decide if he could trust the air. Then he stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me. The camisole was cool against my cheek when I leaned into him. I could feel his heartbeat racing. We held each other for a long time. In the weeks that followed, things didn't magically become easy. Acceptance isn't a switch you flip. It's a practice. It's choosing again and again to stay curious instead of defensive. There were awkward moments. There were times I caught myself thinking something stupid, old lessons rising like reflex, and I had to pause, breathe, and choose a better response. There were nights Bill would pull away, flooded with shame, and I learned not to chase him with questions, but to sit beside him and say, "I'm still here." We talked about what it meant and what it didn't. Bill didn't want to change his name or pronouns. He didn't want to live full-time in feminine clothing. He didn't even want to tell anyone else, at least not yet. It was private, tender, like a room in our house we were remodeling together. We started going to a couples counselor, someone who didn't flinch at the word lingerie, someone who treated Bill's femininity as a part of him rather than a problem to fix. In that office, with its soft chairs and tissue box and framed abstract art, we learned how to speak without blaming, how to set boundaries without building walls, how to say, "I'm scared," instead of "you're wrong." And slowly, something in our marriage loosened. It wasn't just about lingerie. It was about honesty, about the way truth invites closeness. One Saturday morning in December, I woke up to find Bill in the kitchen making pancakes, wearing an old flannel robe of mine over a silky camisole. The robe was too small across his shoulders, and he looked a little self-conscious, but he was humming under his breath. When he turned and saw me, he froze. I could see him bracing for judgment. Instead, I walked up behind him and wrapped my arms around his waist, resting my cheek against his back. "You smell good," I murmured, because he did. Soap and coffee and something lighter. Bill exhaled, long and shaky. "I thought you'd think it was weird," he admitted. "I think," I said, kissing his shoulder through the robe, "that I've missed you." He leaned back into me like he'd been waiting for permission. There was a moment later when the pancakes were gone and the house was quiet, when Bill stood in the doorway of our bedroom and looked at me with a kind of nervous hope. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Anything," I replied. He swallowed. Can you still want me? Like this?" The question landed in my chest like a stone, not because my answer was no, but because I realized how long he'd believed it might be. I walked to him. I took his hands. "I want you," I said, carefully, sincerely, "but not because of what you wear, because of who you are, and because you're letting me see you." Bill's eyes filled again. This man who had been taught not to cry, not to soften, not to be pretty. "I don't want to pressure you," he whispered. "I don't want you to do something just to make me feel—" "I know," I said, "and I'm not. I'm here because I choose to be." That's what changed the temperature of our intimacy, choice. The first time we kissed after all of this, really kissed, not a peck. It was slow and tentative, like learning a new language. Bill's hands trembled at my waist. Mine slid up his arms, feeling the smooth fabric under my fingertips. There was no rush to prove anything, No performance, just the ache of recognition, the soft, startled joy of being close again. We didn't need explicitness to feel the heat. It was in the way he looked at me, searching for approval and finding it. It was in the way I touched him, not as a puzzle to solve, but as someone to hold. It was in the laughter that burst out of us when we bumped knees and nearly toppled off the bed, because desire doesn't have to be serious to be real. Later, when we lay tangled in sheets, breath slowing, Bill traced patterns on my arm like he was memorizing me again. "I thought you'd leave," he whispered. "I thought I might," I admitted, because honesty mattered now more than comfort. Not because of you, because of fear, because of what I thought marriage was supposed to look like. Bill turned his face toward mine, eyes open and raw. "And now?" "Now," I said. "I think marriage is supposed to feel like this, like we're on the same side." The lingerie became, strangely, a kind of symbol in our house. Not a fetish, not a gimmick, a reminder. A tiny piece of fabric that said, "We tell the truth here." Sometimes I'd buy him something small, a new pair of soft briefs, a camisole in a color that made his eyes look brighter. Sometimes he'd show me something he wanted online, cheeks pink, and I'd say, "Let's get it," like it was the most normal thing in the world, because with practice, it became normal. And sometimes I'd buy something for myself too, a bra that fit properly, a slip that made me feel like I wasn't just a caretaker. We were learning, both of us, how to be seen. One night, months later, we went out to dinner for our anniversary. Bill wore his usual button-down and jacket, hair neatly combed, the face the world recognized. But as we stood in the bathroom before we left, he caught my eye in the mirror and hesitated. "I'm wearing it," he said softly. "Wearing what?" I asked, though I knew. He glanced down, then back up. "The black lace ones, under everything." The way he said it, like a secret shared between us, sent a warm thrill through me that had nothing to do with the lace and everything to do with intimacy, with trust. I stepped closer. "How does it feel?" I asked. He smiled, small and real, like I'm not hiding. I reached up and straightened his collar, smoothing it down with my palm. "Good," I said, "because I like you when you're not hiding." At the restaurant, we sat in a corner booth and held hands across the table. The candlelight made the glassware glow. Bill's thumb rubbed circles over my knuckles, absent-minded and affectionate. And I realized, suddenly, fiercely, that I wasn't mourning the marriage I thought I had. I was living inside the marriage we'd rebuilt. The old version of us had been polite, efficient, fearful of rocking the boat. This version was braver. When people hear the headline of my story, "I started buying him lingerie and it saved our marriage," they sometimes laugh or raise their eyebrows like it's a punchline, like it's a twist meant to shock. But if you asked me what actually saved us, I'd tell you the truth. It was the moment I chose curiosity over disgust. It was the moment Bill chose honesty over hiding. It was the thousands of small moments after that, me asking, "What do you need?" and him believing I meant it. Me learning to sit with my own discomfort long enough to find the love underneath it. Him learning that femininity didn't make him less of a man, and it didn't make him less worthy of being held. Sometimes, late at night, I'll open the drawer where we keep those things now. Not his drawer, ours. It's become a shared space, not because lingerie is the center of our marriage, but because sharing is. The fabrics are soft, the colors are gentle, the lace doesn't feel like a secret anymore. And every time I see that tiny satin bow, I think about the Tuesday morning when I found it by accident, my bare foot cold on the floor, my heart racing with fear. I think about how easy it would have been to slam the drawer shut and pretend. Instead, I opened it, and in doing so, I opened him. And in opening him, I found us again.